Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Superfed TV Presents Rebel Action, covering REL Divisions 1, 2, and 3. I am your host, Superfed TV, and it's a great week. Unfortunately, Rumblebee is missing, so we're a little bit behind. I wanted to give him a chance to try and join us this weekend, but he had busy plans. Busy man, that Rumblebee. Busy bee. Unfortunately, so it's going to be just me again. Some exciting matches are happening right now. Otherwise, I would have tried to snatch a co-host from Division 2 or 3. If you're out there and you're saying, yeah, I want to be involved in this recap in some fashion, feel free to message me. Let me know, and I will try and get you in on standby next time my co-host is unavailable. But let's go ahead and jump into it with Division 3. All right, and we are picking up where we left off with the Week 3 action. Some of those games were played last time. Some of Week 4's games have already been played. But let's go ahead and jump into the week's results. We had Zarky's Your Lizard Airy playing the TeamSpeak Crew version 4. And if you are subscribed to the channel, you would actually see I covered this match. And if you're interested and you haven't seen it yet, feel free to check that video out and watch how those two coaches played. This was a very interesting and exciting match. 17 armor breaks for the TeamSpeak Crew versus the 14 for Your Lizard Airy. Not that different. 41 blocks, each going basically similar. The difference was the 14 armor breaks only got 3 removals versus 6 removals. And the second half was really, let's just say the removals got to Zarky, put him on his back foot, and a very inopportune snake to start the second half, I think, really opened the door for the TeamSpeak Crew to get the ball and just kind of slowly work their way down the pitch and control for the 2-1 victory. Otherwise, though, I would say the first half was very well executed by Zarky, making sure that he got that score in. So, let's take a look and move on, since we covered that one at great length already. Lebowski Urban Achievers got the 1-0 win over the Necromantic Newbies. This one was a little bit surprising to me. I think I was favoring the Necromantic Newbies in this matchup, but Lebowski Urban Achievers are forced to be reckoned with as well. 19 armor breaks. Really chewing up those zombies. 52 blocks, 5 injuries, and 3 KOs. Going to be a decent serving of SPP for this Chaos team as well, so that cannot make anyone else in this division very happy. Moving on. Cenobite the Curb got the 2-1 win over Felwith Coda Doll. 16 armor breaks for the 5 of the High Elves. And I caught part of this one. You know, I saw a couple opportunities there for the Elves to attack the ball carrier, but the dice were not cooperating there. I think I saw failed 3+ dodge, re-rolled, and failed. A nice 1 and 9 there, and a couple snakes as well. So 25 blocks, 1 KO. Not quite cutting it for the High Elves in this case. 8 removals, doing the deed. I don't know if there were any perms, but still, no deaths, so at least the Elves lived. Moving on to Murder's Row, 2-1 win over Midsummer Nightmares. And in a division where it's Wolves versus Elves, Murder's Row is definitely doing the best against the Elves. I think they're now 2-1 against them, and oof, that is a dead Mighty Blow Tackle Blodge Blitzer who also got the MVP on his way out. Midsummer Nightmares is going to be feeling that one. You don't get a Mighty Blow Blitzer every single day of the week. You're going to be missed. Red. Can't speak to how well you were utilized on that team. I haven't watched enough of the Midsummer Nightmares, but I will imagine that is definitely a heavy loss. But the MVP going to the Golem, that's good news for this team. Getting block, it looks like. Low armor breaks across the board there. Very low blocks, 29-21. So Necro getting it done with a very limited amount of blocks, but they've got the right werewolf to do that. Scooby and the gang lost 1-2 against Pro and the Party. This is the Necro team that's not doing as good against the Orcs. And I actually caught this one as well. Some shenanigans were had in order to get the victory on turn 16. Including Scooby and the gang. Basically the ball just kept getting dropped over and over, and lots of turnovers for the last couple of turns. But the Pro Elves were able to pick it up and make the toss and run all the GFIs in order to get to the touchdown. Prior to that, though, it looked very much in control of the Necro team. Just slipped through his fingers. Tooth and Fist took on the Pantheon Passers, and the Pantheon Passers got the win 2-1 there. 19 armor breaks, so this is very different than the Midsummer Nightmares. Only 19 blocks for the Pantheon Passers, and is that right? 0 armor breaks? 0 armor breaks, and they get the win. You heard it here first, folks. You do not need to break armor to win the game if you're playing Pro Elves. You just have to sacrifice 3 elves in order to do it. Wow. And an interception. But wow. 3 deaths. I know T-Self is really taking it on the chin to start this season. Just losing positionals left and right. 54 blocks, getting 3 kills, 2 injuries, and 4 KOs. Those are some vicious, vicious casualty rolls. And finally, we had Revenge of the Franks losing 0-3 in big fashion to Tribu Urbana. Hipster being able to really put on the show for these orcs who got their fair share of armor breaks, but mostly KOs. Only 1 casualty out of 20 armor breaks, 1 casualty. It might have me a little bit salty. I'm guessing there were some foul casualties maybe that just didn't show up here, but if it was really truly 1 casualty out of 20 armor breaks, that is a lot of stuns, and I would be pretty cranky if I was the orc coach in that situation. Not that it's ever happened to me. Yeah. Tribu Urbana, though, getting good development, so Hipster's got to appreciate that. Plus, they walked away with, it looks like, no real damage. So, confirm that one more time. That's actually what happened. Yep, no deaths. An expulsion, though, so Hipster fouling those orcs. I like that. I like that a lot. I love it when elf teams foul because it just really puts the opponents on guard, especially if they've got piling on, which I know Revenge of the Franks have a couple piling on pieces. In fact, I think we will take a look at them in just a moment. Looking at the leaderboard, again, most of week 4 is finished because I'm doing this video so late, but apologies for that. I will try and catch up this week and just get this done Wednesday no matter what. We'll talk more about that later, though. Chaos Dwarfs are taking the lead. Puckstop 3-1-0, and I am very impressed with Puckstop's play. We covered that video with him and Zarky, and he looked to be doing very well. What I'm most curious about is how he ends up doing against the Necro teams. I think they will be tougher for the Chaos Dwarves than the Elves necessarily will. But both Elves and Necro could certainly exploit the lack of movement on this team, and you know, if any of them can really do damage to the dwarfs themselves, that would be significant. So, Murder's Row 3-1-0. Again, as I said, they're doing the best against the elves, so that's going to come through in the results. I think we have 3 playoff spots on the line here, so either 3 or 4. I think it's 3. And I would not be surprised to see these 2 taking 2 of the spots. Tribu Urbana, coached by Hipster. Again, another favorite. This is one of the elf favorites that's doing extremely well. And Rengen's Revenge of the Franks, also at 3-1-0. Or, sorry, 3-0-1. Losing that to the hipster could come into play at the end, especially if they're tied like this. Every once in a while, the head-to-head does become a factor in those tiebreakers. Usually, though, it's touchdown differential. Please, dear God, do not get me started on tiebreakers. Pro Elves, Pro in a Party, coached by Stella Dragon, right there in the thick of it at 2-0-2. And Zarky and Lebowski Urban Achievers have not yet played, so they're sitting at 3 games right in the middle of the pack. One of them will also be at 3-0-2. The other one will be at 3-0-1 unless they draw. And again, either of these teams would be at home right at the top of the pack. Zarky's Lizards doing quite well against the Elves in general. This will be one of their bashier matchups, which they will not be as favored in. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Sherdog takes this one. But Zarky, I think, is favored to end higher at the end of the season than Sherdog. Tooth and Fist, Nick and Scooby and the gang. And then looks like Elves bringing up the rear for the most part. Really, there's only 2 Elves that are in the top 10, or top 9. Felith Coated Doll is currently in 10th place at 1-1-2. Pantheon Passers and T-Self, we mentioned it. He's sitting at 1,000 TV. He is wrecked. He's lost a lot of players. Bite the Curb and Drunkernaut. Still just grinding away. Their only win is against these Elves. And Necromantic Newbies, 1-0-3, also struggling with the Elves. Midsummer Nightmares, the elf that's taken it on the chin the most as well. Maybe not in the form of deaths like T-Self's team. I think his team's still in decent shape. He's just not getting the execution and results that he wants to see. So let's pop on over and look at 2 of these teams. The one that is surprisingly as high as they are, although it shouldn't be too big of a surprise because when we look at this team, we'll see why. This is the second season team of Orcs that are 1850. And if they've taken a death, I'd be surprised. Let me, in fact, look at that first before I look at anything else. 3 deaths sustained, so I stand corrected. They've taken a couple losses. It looks like probably a Black Orc and maybe a Line Orc. But their blitzers are healthy. Healthy blitzers. And a very healthy Black Orc as well. I can't fathom how you got 51 SPP and what is essentially 25 games. That's a lot of SPP on your Black Orcs for 25 games. Just saying. So, dissecting this Orc team. This is an Orc team without a thrower. They're using a blitzer, which is more common on Champ Ladder, and I think a lot of people will say that they hate the thrower. I personally have talked about this before if you've watched my videos in the past, but I'm okay with the thrower. I work around that just fine. But I certainly understand the argument for this, and when you've got an Agi 4, Blodge, Sure Hands, Fend, Blitzer, that's a pretty damn good ball carrier, but I do say so myself. The drawback is you're losing out on the Blitzer, but you've got some good development elsewhere, like this guard lineman, that'll certainly make up for that. The other blitzers are all really killy. You've got 2 Palm Tackle Pro, or this one's Palm Tackle Pro, this one is Palm Jump Up Tackle, and another Tackle Mighty Blow. So no matter where you go on the pitch, you will be vulnerable to a Tackle Mighty Blow hit, and 2 out of 3 times you're going to get piled on as well. That's why these guys are developing so quickly. Drawback is they could be out-muscled, but in this division it's unlikely. And when I say out-muscled, that's not counting the fact that you've got 3 guard Black Orcs. All of your Black Orcs have block, which is already a good start. And then you've got this monster, Buck Plankchest. He got a lot of attention in the playoffs. You have a Strength 5 Black Orc, that's already going to be a big sign of respect. But the fact that he's gotten so much SPP to be able to develop into a block guard, stand firm, Strength 5, this thing is a troll without a nega trait and with block. It's amazing. I really like this piece. He's got 6 MVPs, which is how he gets so quickly up there. But 9 casualties in 25 games, and he doesn't even have Mighty Blow. I'm just constantly impressed with how fortunate Rengen is to have this piece and be doing so well with it. Because it's an anchor. It's a very effective anchor to build the rest of your team around, and that does reduce the damage that you take having such a strong center point, which then you can kind of build guard around and have your killers work off of, and it synergizes very well. When we get to my team, or when we get to Division 1, I'm about to take a peek at my team and compare my deaths versus the number of games versus the 3 deaths that he has had. That's crazy. Really good. He's doing really well. And I would argue that this is the second best orc team in REL. I don't think that's that bold of a statement. Moving on from the orcs that I could talk about all day. Let's take a look at... Who have we not covered yet? Let's take a look at Lebowski Urban Achievers. There's a couple things we can talk about. The fun one we'll start with first. Jesus, the Agi 5 Chaos Warrior with Dodge. Working so close to getting Blodge. Unfortunately, on his road to Blodge, took a movement bust, and this was fairly recent. That's a little sad. But he's not getting fired. They're still going to find a use for him. I would argue that that use is actually to not get Blodge, and that it is to get Wrestle, and then to use him as a cage diver, who's, you know, automatically got that reroll there. And he's strength 4. So he can still really be a pain in the butt for anyone that goes up against him, or that is within his mobility, I guess is the right way to put that there. Because the way to play around this is to just go to the opposite side of the pitch. But if you're Sherdog, that could be used to your benefit. You set up Jesus on one side of the pitch, and you know that they're going to go to the other side of the pitch. So it's fun to theory craft stuff like that, and I talked about this a lot. I would go wrestle tackle, or wrestle leap, but leap is really mobility based. So I would personally go wrestle tackle. The rest of the team though is a little bit more standard. You know, you do have a couple stat ups. The ball carrier is awesome. Warner Snout, I should say. Warner Snout. He is movement 7, Blodge, sure hands, and obviously the primary ball carrier of this team. You generally like to see either big hand or what is it? An extra arm, I think it is. Yeah, extra arm, to make the ball carrying a little bit more consistent, because right now it is just 3+ interactions there, but you do have that reroll. 1 and 9s happen though, and they always happen at the worst time, so having an extra arm would probably help. Or, you know, if you're worried about rain or picking up in tackle zones, big hand can also contribute there. Unfortunately, the dude got killed, and I want to say that was last season to a foul by one of the rougher foul teams that Sherdog faced. But otherwise, we've got a nice killer in Walter, which, if you recognize the theme of the team being the Big Lebowski, Walter being a killer, that fits, that makes sense. Big Lebowski, Blodge, guard, stand firm, awesome piece. Curious to see what he goes with for his next level. Possibly tackle, tail, something interesting like that. I would be disappointed if he ended up going Mighty Blow at level at 76 SPP, but that could also work. And then the Beastmen are a little bit lacking for development. I would say that even though he's at 1710 SPP, so much of his his team value, 1710 team value, so much of his team value is tied up into Jesus at 210k. He's really got to get value out of it. That's not to say he doesn't get value out of it. I know he treats tackle zones like they don't exist, and he walks on water and goes where he pleases, and recovers the ball with him as well. So that's why Agi 3 doesn't really make a big deal here with this ball carrier, because this is your ball recovery. But all that said, you've got the strength up, the movement up, and the 2 Agi ups, and that is bloating up your TV quite a bit. Block, tackle, strength up, though, I would take any day of the week. I think this is great. Maybe even get Frenzy on it next. What you're lacking is a Beastman killer, and so you've got one really, really strong killer, but he's not going to level up any further than this for a long time. Having another Beastman killer would do wonders for this team, because when you only have one killer threat, it's very easy for your opponent to mark killer, and at that point, he's only got one option. Well, I guess he could try to dodge away, and he is Agi 3, so it's possible, but that's risking a lot when you're trying to get a blitz action off. Or more likely, you're just going to punch whatever you're attached to, and then you're not actually blitzing the pieces that you want to be blitzing when you're playing Chaos and you're trying to get that removal game going. So that would be my main advice to Sherdog at this point, is getting a second killer up and going, preferably one that's a Beastman, that's a little bit more mobile than the Chaos Warriors. And maybe try and feed a touchdown to the dude just to get him going as well. That is going to do it for Division 3. Let us go ahead and pop on over to Division 2. All right, and we are hopping into Division 2, with the first matchup being the Oil Miners and the Booze Crews and the Dwarf on Dwarf battle. Surprise, everyone, it ended in a 1-1 draw. I know, I was shocked as well. The 1-1 draw featured 14 armor breaks for the Oil Miners, 8 armor breaks for the Booze Crews, 1 expulsion on both sides. I know one of them was a death roller. And the other must have been a foul. Possibly a secret weapon star player, but I doubt it. And I don't care enough to look at the results to see, because the recap video is already gone. So, I'll just assume that it was a foul. 51 blocks for the Oil Miners, 62 for the Booze Crews. Unfortunately for the Booze Crews, having more blocks did not equal more removals or armor breaks. Looks like Booze Crews actually scored pretty fast and didn't have much control of the ball. That's a little interesting. Loner MVP definitely sucks. But really all I have to say about a dwarf match, dwarf on dwarf, 1-1. That's about it. Trikundo played Leafy Mustard and took the win 2-0 in Zwark versus Gerzutz staring contest. And 34 blocks for Trikundo, 32 for Leafy Mustard, not getting the removals. Well, that explains why you got beat by what else so bad. And I would say that you didn't generate enough blocks either. One of the things with Lizardmen is they've got that strength advantage across all their Saurus and the Croxicor. I'm curious if you were missing some Saurus going in this match. I'm not sure. But the Wood Elves should not, absolutely not, have outblocked the Lizards in any stretch of the imagination. I can't envision a scenario where that's acceptable. Regardless, they got 2 injuries and a KO from that, and the Lizards got nothing. So that's a rough day to be a Lizard man. Getting outpunched by Taco Punch. Cinnamon Omega Ultimate. Love it. Love it. That's going to put the Lizards probably on the backside, but we'll look at the leaderboard shortly. Men in Tights lost 0-3 against not FDA approved. This one was a shocker for me. Very surprising. Not FDA approved brought their big boy pants, and in 30 blocks they got 5 KOs and 1 kill. No other casualties. 32 blocks for Men in Tights and 0 removals. They did get 5 armor breaks, so a little bit unlucky there. But in very important news, Woody leveled. And not only did he level, he got pro. He rolled a double for his level 70 or 76 SPP when his level 6. His level 6 skill. So block, grab, guard, break, tackle, pro. That is a very, very good tree. It's so hard to get to level 6 on a tree. It's even harder to get to level 6 on a tree and have skills that matter. Usually, by the time you get to level 6, you're taking multi-block, and quite frankly, you should just be cycling the tree. But this tree has 2 doubles in order to make itself probably the best tree in all of REBBL. I challenge you to let me know of a tree that is better than this tree, with block and pro, guard, grab, and break tackle. True, break tackle's not the most efficient thing in the world, but he's already used it to dive a cage earlier this season, so I would argue that that is definitely useful. And having pro makes that break tackle even better because A, you can re-roll if you do manage to roll one, and B, you can also re-roll that take root to make it so you're more likely to get the chance to move in the first place. All in all, I really like Woody. But this is not the Men in Tights preview, so let me get back to that. Like I said, very shocked, not FDA approved. Is, of course, a well-coached team by ATL, but Slightly Bent was my pick to do amazingly this season, and this one is a surprise. Please Don't Murder Me took the 4-0 win over Cheese Tactics, and Cheese Tactics continues his one death a game, getting slightly more efficient every step of the way. 3 expulsions. I think he got really, really tired of these high elves dancing their way around the pitch and doing a better job of beating him up than he did. He'd get more blocks, got more KOs, and 1 injury and 1 death versus the 2 injuries. I'm going to say the High Elves won that one, bash up and SPP wise. This is the most bloaty High Elf team as well in this division, so the fact that they got 8, 9, 10, 19, 20, 24 SPP, that's the last team that you wanted to give 24 SPP to. So that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting. I don't know if we've taken a look at them, so I think I will look at them this week. Straight Up Flatulence played not an anime sports team, and Arch XL was able to take it 3-1. He had a slow start, and he's kind of in a rebuilding mode, so it's a much needed win for him against a favorite of the cast. Both Rumble and I liked Steubings to do well this season. And 14 armor breaks just wasn't able to cut it. 42 blocks, 7 KOs. Well, that's the problem right there. It's all your removals in the form of KOs. More likely than not, they're just going to come right back onto the pitch, and that doesn't help you out very much. SPP-wise, a lot of development for RGXL, as you would expect, considering that score line and the casualty. But I did not catch that game, and I kind of wish I could. Not available still, is it? Nope, it's not. Damn. That's too bad. It's actually probably on Steubing's channel. Steubing does stream, so I might go back and check that one out. That looks interesting to me. But again, another one of my picked favorites not doing so well in week 3. Lords of Decay lost 0-2 against Ace Truck and Company. Here's a favorite doing well. 21 armor breaks, 2 expulsions. They're just beating the crap out of Khaleesi Maya's team. Khaleesi Maya, one of his trademarked moves is sub 16 blocks. The reason why 16 is a number that matters to me is usually, I do say the word usually, you would take your blitz at least every turn. There's 16 turns in Blood Bowl, usually. And usually you're going to want to blitz before you score. Granted, turn 8. There's a lot of logic in not blitzing when you're about to score, so we'll say 14 blocks. But Khaleesi Maya regularly on Lords of Decay does not make his 1 blitz per turn blocks. He really, really, truly plays the ball first, foremost, and last. So I always like watching that stat on him. But in those 12 blocks, he did get an injury, so there's that. That definitely is a thing that happened. On the flip side, 33 blocks, 7 KOs, 5 injuries, and a kill, and I would imagine probably in the nature of 6 to 8 fouls from Ace Trucking Company. Quicks putting the boot in on those Skaven, getting the win for it, 0-2. Finally, we had the Communist Frat Party who played Iron Maiden, and this is another match that featured on my channel earlier, I believe. I think it was. I don't know that I say that. I want to look and see. That's actually true. I think it was. It's been a couple weeks. They played fast, if I recall. Anyway, 35 blocks for Chaos, or sorry, for the Communist Frat Party. Only 1 KO. Considering the amount of AV7 that's on Iron Maiden, that is unfortunate and unlucky. They did get 8 armor breaks, but to only get 1 removal and 8 armor breaks, also a little bit unlucky. Iron Maiden, on the other hand, got to play exactly the way they wanted. 48 blocks, 7 KOs, 4 injuries, and some fouls to boot with 2 expulsions. Usually, Communist Frat Party likes to foul a lot as well, but this is one of those cases of the junior trying to play the senior at the senior's game, and the senior winning, absolutely, in the foul department. So that will do it for the matches for week 3. As you saw, just really quick there, that most of week 4 was already played. So we will take a peek at the leaderboard and see where things stand. Quicks taking the lead, 3-1. Chaos Dwarves, again, just like in Division 3, doing the business. And ironically, today, actually, the REL's first publication came out, and one of the things that they talked about were Chaos Dwarves, and the fact that there's only 9 of them in the REL, and 3 of those are fresh teams. So there was a big migration of the Chaos Dwarves last season of fresh roll teams, and most of those ended up re-rolling, which I think is just, or I guess the last 2 seasons it was. But I think it's really interesting to see that nobody's really sticking with the Chaos Dwarves, but the 2 teams that did stick with them currently leading their division. Quicks at 2000 TV, that is a really strong, bloaty Chaos Dwarf team. But I don't really see any other Predators, except for maybe Kimry, that are going to really put the hurt on this team. Straight Flatulence also has the capability of wrecking them a little bit, but that'll be a really fun and exciting match to watch. Yeah, I think Chaos Dwarves are very strong, and I'm surprised that there's so few of them. And I'm thinking that after Quicks and Puckstop do well this season, we might see a few more Chaos Dwarves next season. Iron Maiden coming in second place, starting off very strong at 2-2-0, no losses so far, and not FDA approved at 2-1-0 with that big win over Slightly Bent, putting himself in a good position there. Straight Up Flatulence still in the top quadrant at 2-1-1, and the Booze Crew is not giving up a game but drawing a lot. 3 draws so far. Booze Crew's putting up great defense. Men in Tights at 2-0-1, and if they win, they will also actually be second place. So, well, they've been still doing good. And we've got a couple more dwarfs following that. Not an anime sports team. Treat Gundo, Oil Miners, starting faster than they did last season, but again, still not the quickest start. Zoot, lower than I would have expected. Luxama, taking a little bit of hit to the TV, but they are still a very strong, capable High Elf team. Communist Frat Party and Kalisti Maya coming up from lower divisions, trying to still get their feet underneath them as they're playing some of these more experienced coaches in the REBBL and REL. And Strategic Cheese having a rough start. But they did get a win, it looks like, in week 4, so we'll have to talk about that next week. Teams that we're going to take a look at. Who did I say we were going to look at? Straight Up. What? No, it wasn't them. Oh, we covered so far. Oh, we were going to talk about. Oh, okay, we'll cover it. We talked about the tree already, so let's just finish this up. We had a big long rant about Woody the tree. Congratulations on being the best tree, and I'm going to say all of REBBL. Fight me on that if you want. Unfortunately, the rest of the team, though, is getting a little bit banged up, and they dropped down from Division 1, so some of these injuries are, you know, lagging behind. They've recently lost a War Dancer, so they're going to be saving up to replace that as soon as possible. And this War Dancer is a little bit slower than you would like, but still fully functional with tackle, doing that War Dancer job. Very, very strong thrower in Robin Jr., which, to quote Slightly Bent, is surprising even to him that he has lived this long. Accurate strong arm, safe pass, dodge, sure hands. Maybe you get block as your last one. I think that's probably the right choice. Either block or sure feet. I like sure feet as well. Or kickoff return, but he's already got movement 7, so... Nerves of Steel, maybe. I'd go block, just to make him a little more durable. Catcher-wise, we got 3 catchers. One of them is phenomenal with the Agi 5 leap and block. You've got Fabio Tri-Tree, who is Nerves of Steel as his first level up. Interesting threat. I like that. I probably would have gone with guard personally, but you do have a blodge guard lineman, so can't really fault you for that one. That's a really strong scoring threat, especially if you get sidestep, block, and maybe leap on him. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that works out for you. My only concern is in Division 2, there's plenty of tackle, plenty of mighty blow, and not getting block on that first level or something defensive may prove to be a death sentence. But if he can live long enough to get the rest of what he needs, it'll be a really good piece. Peter Parker at Lodge sidestep. And then some decent lineman development. Can't really fire this guy because you're saving up to get the War Dancer. I get that. And really his job is to stand on the line next to the tree anyway. So being Agi 3 really doesn't change a thing. Movement bust on the dodge one. Again, I would probably keep him. His next level up is probably going to be block instead of wrestle. If he didn't have that movement bust, I would say wrestle for sure. But since, again, he's probably going to just sit next to the tree. Makes sense for him to be lodge. And yeah, that's Men in Tights. Their overall record is 22, 13, and 29. So they've been around a while. They've been to the top. They've taken a season backwards to kind of reestablish themselves and maybe build up some development before returning to Division 1. At least I fully anticipate them to. And they're off to a good start. So at this point, I think it's safe to say that they're not going to get relegated to Division 3. And the last team that we're going to take a look at, again, I still don't know who I was talking about earlier. My mind is flipping. Well, let's take a look at the Trucking Company. So, leading the division, Quicks 96. 96, that is a tongue twister. Shouldn't be. 2 very strong Bull Centaurs, although, what is this? Huh. Didn't realize he did this. Citation, Bull Centaur, block, break tackle, strip ball, Agi 3. I really don't remember this. He must have got this after we played. Or maybe because I have sure hands. Strip ball just doesn't mean anything to me and I just didn't even look at it. But that's interesting. I like Agi, of course, on a Bull Centaur. It makes a very different role for this player. He's got a strong Hobgoblin ball carrier with sure hands, block, kickoff, return, and fend. I think that's the perfect non-double rolling Hobgoblin ball carrier. It's not like you want sure hands to go with his Agi 3, but if he ever dies, you could. The strip ball, though, is just interesting. I'm really not sure how to make of it or what to make of it. I guess if you were marked and you dodged with the Agi 3 on a blitz and you didn't have to use the break tackle, you could cage dive with it. You just don't have great ball recovery. I like strip ball on teams with good ball recovery, and a Chorf team is not one that has any real good ball recovery, so to speak, or to speak of. And then the other Bull Centaur is block, frenzy, mighty blow on Secretariat. And I know Secretariat has died. I think this is the second Secretariat. But a frenzy Bull Centaur is good. The only problem is he's a little bit slower to develop if you get frenzy early on like this. And it is very easy for your opponent to just base him and leave him alone. And then you're kind of stuck because you don't have that break tackle. And it's hard for me to justify getting break tackle next with this since you've already got Mighty Blow, like I would be tempted to go tackle, even though Frenzy is poor man's tackle, but I think you have to go break tackle in order to really get the most use out of this piece. So I would encourage you to do that at 51 SPP, just one away. Looking at the actual Chaos Dwarfs themselves, cannot go without mentioning Quattro Quattro. I have a lovely history with Quattro Quattro of giving him a hard time. Mostly because you can never convince me that taking Prehensile Tail as a first level up on a Chaos Dwarf blocker is a good thing. But because he did that, he got strength up to make him really Quattro Quattro. And then guard. So now he's got kind of a defined role, sort of. If he gets another double and he gets diving tackle, I will fully be a believer in Team Quattro Quattro and then stand firm at like 71. And he should get stand firm next no matter what, because then you can park him on a ball carrier and make him dodge out with the tail if you don't knock him over, which is hard to do because he's strength 4. So I'm with you on the logic of that thought so far. If you get stand firm next, that's good. If you get diving tackle and stand firm on Quattro Quattro to go with the tail and strength 4 and block, I would genuinely say that it's a good piece. As it is, the tail has done something once and then twice, and by something I mean it made someone use a reroll once because tackle, but that's about it. I have not seen Quattro Quattro actually truly trip someone with the tail in a impactful situation. But I'm still waiting for it. I watch a lot of Quixis games. I give respect to Quattro Quattro in the sense that I want to see him do something. He just hasn't convinced me that this is the best thing so far. But the guard helps. The guard helps. And the strength up, of course. Enough with Quattro Quattro. 8-Ball is the quote-unquote star of the team. Got Agi busted after he got jump up, which kind of sucks, but who cares? You're going to still use that jump up to make sure you get your 4 movement to get your blitz off. Claw, Mighty Blue, piling on, pro, jump up. I would assume he's going to get Juggernaut at max level, but who knows? It could be something else. I'm sure he'll get there very soon. He might even get there this season. We definitely see Quicks rely on 8-Ball to get the removals a lot, since none of the other short blockers have both Mighty Blow and Claw. In fact, none of them have Claw. This is, of course, the most likely piece to remove somebody, so he uses it pretty heavily, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him shoot up an SPP as the season progresses. Last thing I'll touch on is the Wrestle Tackle Hobgoblin, and I completely agree that's the only other Hobgoblin you keep beyond Dirty Player and only at Dirty Player. If he gets a second skill up, I don't think you need Kick on this team, but Kick's a good skill. But I would just cycle him. And I think that's what he just did. So anyway, that is enough on Ace Trucking Company. I can tell you the story of Ace and his son Mace and all the Ace people that just keep dying, but we'll save that for another time. And that will conclude Division 2. Let us move on to Division 1. Alright, welcome back, and we are now going to jump into Division 1. First up, for Week 3, we had Edie Manthanks taking the 4-2 win over the Skinky Island Boys. Unfortunately, this one ended with a little bit of an asterisk. It was around turn 14 or 16, I want to... Oh, no, not 16. Yeah, I want to say turn 14. We had a bug that caused an error and basically the match was unable to be finished. That's why the stats are not completely accurate. The score at the time was 4-2. Ball was in Edie Man-Thing's possession. There wasn't much Kinky Island boys could do at that point to really stop the score. But because of the way the nature of the bug, this was an admin decision in the end to go ahead and seed. And I think at that point in the game, it's probably the right thing to do if you're on the other side of that, to just kind of let it go where it is. Or actually on either side of that, I think turn 14, the game is pretty well decided. So if anyone had looked at that and wanted to know what that situation was, that's what that was. Howl at the Moon lost 0-1 against Steve. Turns out having a Legend Necro is a very good thing against, or Legend Werewolf is a very good thing against a rookie Werewolf. Who'd have thunk? Steve only had one Werewolf on the pitch at the time, but that was enough to make things happen. And Howl at the Moon certainly inflicted some damage here, but unfortunately the regen game was on point for Steve, and the KO rolls were as well. Not so much for his team. And that gave them the 0-1 win. Gloom and Zoom took on Necronomics in what is continually and repeatedly becoming a mainstay in Division 1 between these two Necro standards. Gloom and Zoom this season got better end of the blocking game, I would say, at 56 blocks with only 1 injury inflicted. Necronomics being a little bit more efficient with their play, but getting 4 removals from the 35 blocks and causing out the draw. I want to say I watched this one, but I honestly cannot remember. It was too long ago to really give you any more than that. Live Tree or Die Hard got the 2-1 win over Animal Farm. This one I did watch, and you know, Sace, for all his effort, did everything he could to just dismantle this team. And in 33 blocks, they got 10 removals. So, I mean, there certainly wasn't a lack of effort there. But, unfortunately, the removals alone were not enough for them to convincingly take this win here. And I gotta say, part of it is Animal Farm having a weaker ball carrier now that the current one, it has a movement bust, and maybe we'll take a look at his team this week. That's probably a good idea, just to kind of assess where that team's at and what it's going to take to get them on track. Because at this point, I know they've fully embraced the kill chaos plan, but it's not resulting in wins at this point. So see if there's anything that's glaringly obvious that could possibly change the tide of Sace's trajectory. And where were we? There we were. New Year Norse took the 2-1 win over Rats Off to You. This one surprised a lot of folks. Rats Off to You were Golgothan, who was actually at the time off to a very good start, and New Year Norse were pretty banged up and beat up. But we saw 300. Star of Ornan's New Year Norse continue to put on a show with shadowing, even against rats. It's a thing. It's very strong. Who knew? And they just played really well. Is the best way to put it. 61 blocks. Being able to get 61 blocks against Golgothan's rats, who actively try to avoid the fight as much as possible. And this was a pretty nail-biter finish. Rats Off to You, or basically New Year Norse, held the ball, but they were stalling out for turn 16 because of the obviously 1-turn, 2-turn capability of the rats. And there were plenty of dice on the ball carrier, and in fact the ball popped out a couple times, but Golgothan's rats were just not quite able to pick it up in the end, whereas the Norse were, and they were able to hang on to it, score at the end, and the 1-turn was not able to happen for Rats Off to You. So yeah, it was very well played by the returning champions, despite the fact that they are just not in that scary of a shape. They don't have that much Mighty Blow. They don't have a Yeti. They're pretty bare bones Norse, and they're still putting up great wins. So, tip my hat to Ornan in that match. My team took on the Pastry Pests, and for the second week in a row, kickoff event really ruined my day. Twice, actually, in this match. I had 2 riots, so I didn't even get to play 16 turns. I got to play 14 turns. And I was really just 1 turn shy. To start, the wizard knocked the ball loose, and I think my comment in the game was, and I was well caged, I was screened. I was caged and then screened past the cage. But my comment, and so he lightning bolted at that point and just, left clicked on the ball from where his gutter was, I think 6 squares away, 5 squares away. And it sounded like a slot machine. All of the dice being rolled again and again and again and again and again with no reroll needed. Just ran right in there, threw tackle, didn't matter. Picked up the ball, more dice to get back out, handoff, and a pass, and that rat was gone. I was very quickly down 2-0 against the Pastry Pest. Luckily for me, there was a window of an opportunity for me to get back into it after a snake on a pickup after my first score, which allowed me to get right up to the ball, and it was right in front of my ball carrier. Perfect location for the kick. Perfect location for him to scatter the ball, not be able to recover it. He set up for the opposite side of the pitch. I was able to get over there, push my way up, and at that point, I could tell Lumi was playing for the win. He just went not all man, but he positioned in a way that required me to do a lot of risks and a lot of blocks in order to get free. He used sidestep perfectly. Yeah, he put the screws on me, and unfortunately, I was not able to make the 3+ handoff in order. After I finally did do the blitz, and I just set up a chain blitz and everything else to get 2 3-dies, which were both pushes, and then another 3-die from a line orc that didn't even have block, but he did eventually get the POW to then free up the guy that needed to hand off for the touchdown on turn 16, which was really only turn 14. I'm not bitter about the kickoffs, obviously. But he failed, and I was out of rerolls at that point. I had to use the reroll on a GFI. So yeah, that happened. That was frustrating. Very, very close to drawing there. But he played me very well. All I can say is I was happy to get the opportunity to play Lumi. Between our prime teams, I mean, Pastry Pests are, at least, they're champions, but they're also, in my mind, Lumi's prime team, and Brazzers are my prime team. So it was a good match. I just wish I could have drawn it. It was close. It was very close. I definitely didn't think I was going to win it, so that's okay. Finally, we had Tadpoles in the Big City, who lost 0-2 against 3 Mountains, and again, 130's start to the season is rough, considering he was a playoff coach last season, and he just rolled over REL 1 last season with tons and tons of removals. Just not getting them this season. Only 2 injuries inflicted, 33 blocks, no other removals to speak of, versus the Dwarves, who got 52 blocks and 8 removals. That's a big statement from Chaos Ugulu, being able to lay that hurt on the former playoff team. So going over to the leaderboard, most of the matches are played as we are so late in the week. Wave, though, is continuing to stay atop the division with Duberman right behind him. Once Duberman plays, even if he loses, he'll be tied for first. So that's how far ahead he is. Just putting on a commanding performance so far of his Wood Elves in a division where Agi doesn't usually work out unless you're a rat. So, and even at that, Lumi doesn't usually take the division. He usually sneaks into a playoff spot. So it's surprising to see Wood Elves doing so well so far. Not surprisingly, Gloom and Zoom and Necronomics at 3 and 4 respectively. Those 2 Necro even have the same TV at this moment. They're usually near the top, so that's not a surprise. Pastry Pest at 5th, Ornan at 6th. Again, we're competing for 5 playoff spots in Division 1, so this playoff picture here, probably realistic to what we're going to be looking at down the road, but we'll see. The Eat Man thing certainly can still be in that top picture. They still have a match to play, and really they have the most disgusting one-turner of all time, so it's going to be really hard to rule them out until that thing dies. Three Mountains, though, putting on a decent performance so far at 2-0-2. Rats off to you, currently at 2-0-1. I'm also at 2-0-2, and we'll see how that shapes up to be. Animal Farm at 1-0-3. Necromantic Steve, coached by Yayo, at 1-0-2. Out the Moon at 0-0-4, as are Tadpoles in the Big City. So Rumblebee not remembering how to necro without a amazing killer legend. And 130 off to that really rocky start, which I claim some responsibility for after having a really, really bloody match on week 1. I don't think he's had a full team ever since that match, so that's definitely being a factor there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the two teams that we said we were going to. Animal Farm, coached by Sace. Animal Farm has been a Division 1 mainstay for a very long time. As long as I've been in the REL, Animal Farm has been in Division 1. They haven't always been on top, but they have always been a gatekeeper for the division, able to inflict their damage upon those who dare impose upon REL 1, the sanctity of REL 1. Some of that bullcrap. I don't know. Anyway, Sace's job is to just hurt your team, and he does it well. He's quite efficient at it, as Rumblebee has encountered. 26 wins, 28 draws, 35 losses. This is normal for Chaos. We've talked about this many times. You know, if you can do 1-1-1 across all three, then that's pretty good for Chaos. And he was closer to that at one point. The main stars of the team are, in fact, the somewhat beaten up Chaos Warriors. We've got Mr. Pilkington, who's all the things that you'd like to see on a Strength 4 piece. Block, guard, stand firm, Mighty Blow, tackle. One thing I don't like is Mighty Blow at the end there, but it doesn't matter. He's fully developed at this point. Mr. Frederick, who is Strength 5, block, jump up, and then Agibust came after that. Mighty Blow and guard. We have Mr. Jones, who is block, guard, claw, Mighty Blow, stand firm. And finally, Mr. Whimper, the main killer, I would argue, of this team. We have Mighty Blow, block, claw, tackle, piling on, and he breached legend and took pro. So, as far as I know, the only legendary Chaos Warrior in all of the REBBL. And he has a reputation. He's done some things around here, believe it or not. Looking at the Beastmen, this is where, I mentioned before, we've got a movement bust on the main ball carrier of this team, and that is going to significantly damper the offensive capability of this Chaos team. It's very clear that they're very good at killing things. What's not so clear is that they are capable of scoring. And this is where you might want to actually take a page out of the lower divisions, where we see some Chaos teams with some unconventional but effective offensive beastmen to go with the ball carrier. I would personally like to see you do something other than all this Mighty Blow block spam, not just for the survival of my own team. I'm actually really anxious to play Sace in week 5 because I just want to get it out of the way, first of all, and 2, I want to see how well my guard can stack up against his. He's only got 3, so we'll see if it matters. Or if he just kills me. Probably just kill me. Moses is the other killer here, with all the wonderful claw palm tackle action that you would expect from a Chaos team. But I think there's a lot of things that you can do on Chaos and not just be the kill Chaos. I, for one, would like to see some kind of block, extra arms, 2 heads, so like this portion here, but without the ball handling skills. Just to have some kind of second threat, I think would be useful. But yeah, that's Animal Farm in a nutshell right now, and where they're at and the direction that they are on. Kill, kill, kill. Finally, let's take one last look at another team. believe we've already covered the Wood Elves. We have... Let's cover Golgothan's Ratsoftia. If you're not familiar with this team, the first thing that you need to know is that this is the only Skaven team where I will say that the most important player is not a Gutter Runner. It is also not a Storm Vermin. It is the one and only Gary Friendly. If you're not familiar with the legend of Gary Friendly, I believe Heronsword has a highlight dedicated to it. There's also a ad that's running around, a political ad of Gary Friendly for governor. And yeah, Gary Friendly is a line rat that has Dirty Player, Sneaky Get, Kick, and Wrestle. And this guy does it all. Not only is he a regular fouling piece with that Dirty Player, Sneaky Get, he has Apple rights. Not a lot of line rats have Apple rights. And he's just, you know, not only the mascot, but the star of this team. More important than a lot of the gutters on this team, surprisingly. So, just something to keep that in mind. Oh, that's right, this happened. I forgot about this. If we are going to go ahead and look at the gutters, there was a gutter that was a star and a legend. Gibbons, who was a natural one-turner with movement up, sure feet, 2-head, sprint, block, and catch. It just so happens he took a movement bust. I like that. In case you can't tell. Natural one-turners getting movement busts makes me very happy. Who is that, by the way? New Year Norse. Oh, leave it to the champ. Leave it to the champ. Inflict what should possibly, well, it probably won't be a career ender, honestly. And I actually am okay with it not being a career ender because now he's going to generate a push. Just one push to get that one turn. That makes me so happy. Anyway, moving on. Brandon the Fourth with Sure Hands block. Bend and sidestep. Very efficient, non-double rolling gutter runner right there. And Dr. Ian Black with an Agi up wrestle strip ball 2-heads. This is a cage diving threat for sure. Unfortunately, if you've got Sure Hands, it's just not as scary of a threat. He really needs tackle to round this one off. Be a little bit more scary, in my opinion. And then Joy Peters II. Joy was the long-standing original gutter runner that had been around since the beginning of the team, and unfortunately she died this season. So this is not the first time Golgothan's been to Division 1, but I would say that he's getting a re-welcoming to Division 1 as we start the season. But he started off well. He had 2 wins, but curious to see how big of a setback that movement bust is on his natural one-turner, or formerly natural one-turner. So that will do it. Let's go ahead and peek at the schedule. What's left this week? We've got Ratsoftia versus Live Cheer Die Hard and Steve versus Eat Eat Man Things. Of those matches, this match is always entertaining. Last season, Duberman and Golgothan, because they are real-life friends, got pretty shit-faced, and were in the same house when they played this match, and they streamed it as well. And it was, I'm not supposed to swear so much. It was a crap show. It was great. It was good times. Probably Blood Bowl as tabletop players know it more than Blood Bowl 2 players know it. So if they do stream it again this season and they do the same thing where they stay up late and they drink, you should watch it. It's fun. It's entertaining. And there's actually playoff implications on the line, which as it happened last season, both of them ended up going to the playoffs, but changed the seeding around. So could happen again this season. And then finally, Steve versus Eat It Man Things. Steve needs to win. MPA needs a win. I'm going to go with MPA on this one. So that will do it. I'm a little over an hour. Made myself talk a lot more since Rumblebee left me in the lurch. But next week we should make sure we have a co-host. And since next week Rumblebee and I are playing each other, I think there's a pretty good chance that we will do the recap at the same time, but we'll see. Anyhow, thank you everybody for watching. You guys have a good night. Good luck, coaches. See you next time.